Hello from Chicago. Boy, am I glad we're doing this from the comfort of our own homes. I don't want to be out in this. I'll bet you don't either. And I'm not sure where you're watching from, but at least we can be cozy and snuggled in and talk about some nonverbal communication skills. How about that? Don't get me wrong now. I love words. I'm Karen Hand. I'm a board certified hypnotist, and I wrote the book, Magic Words and Language Patterns. I love words. In my radio career, of course, words were all I had to communicate, to set a tone, to create emotions. Words were my business. But there was nonverbal in the words as well, with tonality and pace. There's a lot to do that is around the words. And even though I do love words, and I strategically use words, in this class I want to share a dirty little secret. Words are a small fraction of what it takes to communicate. Words are a code, of course, that we use to get an idea from our head into somebody else's head, to share our thoughts. But words are just a small fraction of the communication that takes place at any given time. Now, I'm going to refer to some notes that I have here occasionally during this because I do have a tendency to go off on tangents sometimes, and we do have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to keep us on track and cover all of our points. I'm a big believer in those words and the nonverbals that surround it. I'm also a big believer in the big lie we were all told as children. You probably remember it. Sticks and stones can hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me. Lie. How many of you have dealt with many clients who come in and it's a word imprint that you're working to help them change? That's right, the words can stick, but that's not all there is to the communication. Can't tell you how many times in a grocery store or some other environment I've wanted to walk up to a parent and say, do you have any idea what you're saying to your child and the imprint that you might be putting on them? A woman in a grocery store who might be frazzled in a hurry might say to her grabbing child, stop, I can't take you anyplace. You're so unruly, I never get anything done. You're driving me crazy. Wow. The imprints. You know, I could walk up to mothers in those cases or parents and hand them my card and say, have your child call me in a few years. That would fall on deaf ears. We know that doesn't work. And of course, that would not be effective communication, right? We know that the words have impact, but as I was giving you that example of the parent, you notice when I said, you're driving me crazy, that I didn't say it that way. And parents, when they're angry, they don't say it that way to their kids. You're driving me crazy. Or, you're making me crazy. I mean, all of those have nonverbal implications with the tone and the gestures and that kind of thing. But typically when a parent is yelling at a child, it's angry looks and flailing arms. There are all sorts of nonverbals that go along with that. Certainly, if you meet a brand new client, the client walks in and they're standing up straight and they're really nicely dressed and all put together, and there's a firm handshake with the greeting, that's going to give you an entirely different impression than a client who walks in, they're not dressed well, they're slumped, weak handshake, kind of a hangdog look. You're going to get a very different impression. The impression may come from the words, but more than that, it's coming from the look, the feel, the nonverbals going along with it. Of course, you've seen a friend or a family member walking toward you and you were able to say, wow, are you okay? You don't look happy today. Just the expression on their face communicates a message to you. It's all communication. We are always communicating. Now, I gave you a handout for the class, and just in case you don't have it handy, let me share at least the picture portion, the top part of that handout with you. If you look up here now at these top three, we're going for impressions here. We're going for nonverbals, because in these pictures, there are no words. So I want you to look at these first three and just experience your first impression. There are no right or wrong answers here. Just look at those first three and tell me, who is the most spiritual? Of the three, which one is the most spiritual? Okay, we'll come back to that one in a moment. On this photo, which one is the doctor? First impression, which one is the doctor? Over here, in this picture down here, which one is the boss? Which of these four people is the boss? First impression, what do you think? You know, I do this exercise in my certification classes with students, and it's always interesting to see the impressions that come out of this exercise. In this top line, remember I told you no right or wrong answers. In this top line, most often, this person, the young woman smiling, making the peace sign, she is most often seen as the most spiritual. This woman comes in second, and this guy in the middle doesn't usually get very many votes. Now, let me change it up for a moment. Let's look for a different impression. If I ask you, which of these three is the most religious, that might give you a very different answer, a very different impression. When I ask which is the most religious, this woman gets most of the votes, and this man gets a few. Religion doesn't necessarily correlate with this woman's attitude, but spirituality is different. And as I said, no right or wrong answers. Your impression was filtered through your life's experiences, and you made your decisions instantly, quickly, based on the filter of your life experiences. And so that's how you came to your answer, no right or wrong. Remember, I said no right or wrong answers because this is just free clip art. I don't have any idea who these people are or whether they're spiritual or religious or dressed up for a costume party. The point is, when we go looking for something, we're looking through the filter of our life experience, through our own ideas. We won't all agree. There won't ever be a consensus or a unanimous decision on spirituality or religion because we all have different life experiences. But we can certainly move one in the direction. You notice when I asked for spirituality or religion, I didn't pick somebody in a bathing suit as part of our test case, right? So down here, which one is the doctor? You probably came up with an instant assessment, depending on your life's experiences. When I ask this of students, there are two people who are most often chosen as the doctor. These two, the man in the lab coat and the woman with the stethoscope. Rarely do people choose this other woman off to the side. And when we ask, how did you arrive at that decision? Well, the man is in a lab coat and he's a man. The others are nurses. That's life experience, is it not? I had a nurse who once told me, well, he has to be the doctor because the other two are working. She has a folder and she has a stethoscope, and everybody knows nurses do all the work and doctors don't. That's her life experience. And she walked into a hospital and saw all of those various uniforms. You know, they have uniforms in a hospital for a reason. It's a non-verbal instant identifier. So scrubs might indicate surgery. A white pressed uniform with a cute little cap, I went with stereotypical nurse there, didn't I? Might indicate nurse. A long white lab coat might have a different code, and a short blue lab coat might have a different code. That's for instant identification in case of an emergency, and it's a great thing. But we all filter our information that way. And so whomever you chose that on your own filter. Some people choose her because of the stethoscope. Well, she must be because she's got the stethoscope. However you filter the information is fine for you. In a moment, we're going to talk about how we're going to generate that experience on purpose. Down here, most often, in fact, the two in the back are never chosen as the boss. Never chosen as the boss. I'm guessing because of their position in the picture, they're in the back. These two in the front are chosen as the boss. Sometimes it's this woman because she's got the stern look, She's overseeing, and sometimes it's this man because he's behind the computer, he's teaching his employees something. No right or wrong answer. Note that. It's a filter through the nonverbals that we're picking up from dress, from stance, from positioning in a hierarchy, right? Those are all filters that are sending nonverbal communications because we are always communicating. Okay, so that's enough of that picture. You can go to your handout and use that anytime you choose. So, do you notice a new nonverbal? I changed backgrounds. Now, we're doing a Zoom presentation, and I have a green screen, so I have the advantage of putting any background behind me that I want. And it's a very interesting nonverbal suggestion. When we first started, I wanted to set a tone for our class here. And so I used a picture of, from my kitchen table, my backyard. It showed you the snow and set a tone for we're in our home, we're cozy, we're having a little chat together. It helped with the ambient tone of what we were doing. Coming back from that, I set a different tone. And I use a Chicago background more often than I use other backgrounds because I do have a global audience when I'm doing a webinar or when I'm working with clients in other countries. I really like a variety of Chicago backgrounds because it sets a message. If I'm doing a webinar, if I'm doing a promotion for something, I like to set the tone of big city, Chicago, big deal. Does that make sense to you? So we're setting tones with all of this other stuff that's going on behind us. Even the background sets a different tone. Recently, I did some work with a gym. They were getting terrible Yelp reviews, and they wanted some help to clear that up. So I read their Yelp reviews, and I got to go undercover and go investigate what was going on in that gym. And I quickly, upon entering the gym, understood why they were getting their bad Yelp reviews about lack of customer service, and they don't seem to care. When I walked in, the gym was fantastic, beautiful, a gorgeous place. Kids, happy kids doing gymnastics, and brilliant coaches. Their coaches looked like they were really great gymnasts. As a matter of fact, they have some Olympic gymnasts who are actually teaching some of the students there. It's a great setup, really professional. But when I walked in, nobody greeted me. Nobody looked up. Nobody paid any attention to the woman without kids walking around in the gym. There was another area. There were workers there, but they were busy. They were doing other things. They were, some of them, texting and looking at other things. My phone, by the way. Excuse me, I've got a message here. Just take this for 1 second. I'll be right back with you. I don't need to answer that now, but I'll keep it open just in case they need to get back to me really quickly. So I can keep an eye on what's going on. That's what was happening with a lot of the people that were in the gym. Now, I'm not going to sit here with my phone. It's turned off. I'm not going to look for messages, right? What I am going to do is put it down, close it up and put it away, because that is a nonverbal message. If you're having a communication with somebody and they're holding their phone, they're giving you the nonverbal message that at any moment something more important than you could come up and they want to be ready just in case. If you want to have a dedicated communication with somebody, put your phone in your pocket. Put it in your desk drawer. Keep it in your purse. Why give the nonverbal suggestion that something might be more important than the person that you're talking to? Just go ahead and put it away. Now, back to the gym experience. I walked in, a lot of the workers were on their phones or doing something else. They weren't paying attention. There was an area in the gym where the kids change shoes or mill around, and there was a sign that said, "No shoes on the carpet." I guess barefoot children, they want to keep the carpet as clean as possible. Great. Nobody was watching, so I just wanted to see what happened. Remember, I'm doing surveillance. So I walked in with my shoes, sat down in that area, and just sat there and watched gym activities going on in this lovely place. Nobody noticed. I was there for probably half an hour, walking around, looking around, doing things. no kids, and nobody noticed. My impression was nobody paid attention, no customer service. I finally did go up to someone sitting behind a desk and ask some questions, and they said, "Oh, I can't answer that question," or "I don't know," or I don't, they didn't have any handouts for information. I asked about classes. They said, "You'll have to call and ask to speak to a certain person." They were not forthcoming with help. I did not feel respected, wanted, special. Thus, their Yelp reviews. So when we worked on improving their gym experience, I had to ask the owner, what experience do you want for your business? Oh, safety for the children and a fun environment and a professional environment and good education. Okay, well, let's work on those messages then. A fun environment, yes, it looked fun. Everybody was having a good idea, a good time. Professional, well, having somebody behind a desk who works there say, "I don't know the answer to that," or "You'll have to call somebody else to get the answer," was not terribly professional. So they now have handouts for all of their various programs. So should somebody walk in and ask, they have something to hand to them. They have an answer. They've got something they can give them. Those are great nonverbal cues. They put up a suggestion box with the sign, "We care about your experience." And they can write in suggestions. Their Yelp reviews have improved, but also their business has improved because as they changed the experience changed for the people who pay high dollar. Well, they should present themselves high end. And that means customer service. That means taking care of the people that are in there. And they wanted safety. Having me walk around with nobody noticing amongst a bunch of children, I didn't think looked very safe. So they set up some ideas that when somebody walks in, they're greeted, they're noticed. And that gives a tangential experience to the other parents that they're watching. They're taking care of my kids. That is a great non-verbal. Their business was great. The education was great. They just needed some better messaging so that they could get the rest of what they wanted across. Creating the experience. My first business, when I went into hypnosis, I had that great radio career, and then I transitioned into hypnosis, and I didn't know anything at all about business. So while I studied and I learned hypnosis, I didn't know business. So I did the thing that I knew I could do. I bought into a franchise business, so I kind of got a business in a box. And there were lots of rules and lots of regulations and ways that we set things up, and many of them taught me some great lessons. One of the rules in that franchise was to have our office in a medical building. Expensive proposition, but we had an office in a medical building, and my business partner and I, these two radio gals, believe in go big or go home, so we bought a big office. We had 7 spaces for hypnosis rooms and coaching, and we employed 5 other hypnotists. We were busy all the time. We had a very active business. We advertised heavily. Because we were in a franchise, we were able to pool our money with other centers in the Chicago area and do some really good advertising in an expensive market. So we had the medical building edict. And because we were in a medical building, the reason that it was required that we be in a medical building is to upgrade the impression of hypnosis. We worked with weight loss and smoking cessation mostly. We had people on long programs, high dollar long programs, and we needed the impression that this was a high dollar business, a serious business. And the franchise opinion was we didn't want people asking if you're going to cluck like chickens or bark like dogs. No one ever asked us if that would happen in our office. And it was because of the nonverbal messaging. When they walked into the medical building, that set a tone. When they walked past doctors' offices, dentists' offices, and then came into our office, we had a beautiful lobby, well-appointed chairs and beautiful carpeting. We had a granite countertop around the receptionist. All of the client folders were in medical type folders. It looked very professional. And it was very professional. But as they walked in, greeted by the receptionist, signing in, having everything very formal like that, and then when it was time for their appointment, the hypnotist greeting them in the lobby and taking them back to their appointed office, it was very professional. It seemed, the ambiance was professional. It didn't look like a stage show, or it didn't look like funny business. And so that right there got in the way of anybody asking or changed beliefs about anything that would be embarrassing that would happen to them in that environment. It was a lovely lesson to learn. As they came in, sat down, made their first appointment, and had their ambiance, it built anticipation. It built anticipation of success. As we walked them back to the office and greeted them and talked to them a little bit, the testimonial posters that we had on the walls, etc., all set a tone and expectation of success. Isn't that what we're taught in hypnosis? Anticipation, expectation of success. Now, let me point out here, don't lie. Don't lie. If you don't have the goods, don't set up a false impression. If we weren't successful with the clients we were seeing, that impression that we set up would have been negated pretty quickly, and that would have been a long-term problem. So if you don't have the goods, don't lie. But if you do have the goods, set the tone ahead of time so it's easier for you to then facilitate the change. I like to look at a 3-step process as you're looking at your business. These are things that I have learned in doing business, because I certainly didn't know it when I first got into business. The first rule is know yourself. Know yourself is the first rule. Know your skill set. Know what you're capable of doing. Offer the things that you are well versed in offering that you can produce good results for. But also know some things about yourself. Being in a franchise environment, great business, I learned a lot. And one of the things I learned is I'm not a very good rule follower. I often wanted to veer off the franchise menu and try something new. As I got new education, as I learned more things, as I had more tools, I wanted to work really with the 20% of our client population that was not having 100% success. About 80% of the clients had great success in that business, but there were about 20% who needed some extra work, and the franchise environment didn't really allow for that extra work. So I sought out more training so that I could help those people. I own the business. I was able to see some of them in my home office at that time and do some of the extra work that was needed. But I learned, right, that I'm not a good rule follower. I needed to do things my way. Had I known that ahead of time, I probably would have not joined a franchise with lots of rules and lots of regulations. If you're quick on your feet, then do things on the fly. If you know that you're not very quick on your feet, a formula system, a franchise system might be perfect for you. If you like to follow a formula and that creates success for you, that might be what's best for you. Know that. Are you a freestyler or a rule follower? Good things to know about yourself so that you can move forward in the business in that realm. If you're not particularly clean with your car, or you're not particularly a calm driver, think twice about having your advertising wrapped on your car. Think twice about putting a magnetic sign on the side of your car. Because if you've got a big sign on the side of your car that says hypnosis works and your phone number, and you're road raging and you're flipping people off in traffic, the incongruence is going to hurt your business rather than help your business. So if you keep your car really clean and you're really calm in traffic, then by all means, use that car wrapping to advertise your business. Park it in places where people can see it. But make sure that you're congruent with the message that you are distributing, because we are always communicating, right? Know yourself. Know what you have to offer. So if you're very businesslike, present a very businesslike website, a very businesslike office. If you do energy work, if you work with crystals, if you do other things like that, by all means, display that on your website, display that in your office. If you do holistic work, by all means, be clear about that. Because when people choose you for your website, for a presentation that you may have made, you've made an impression on them and they're acting on that impression. That's what they believe to be true. As long as you're congruent, you have a much better chance of success. You have a much greater likelihood of fulfilling the expectation and moving forward to success. Know your outcome. Know your outcome. That's step number 2. Know your outcome. What do you want in your business? Do you want your business to be a hobby business? If you're a hobby hypnotist, there's nothing wrong with that. You can bring in clients, you can bring in friends, you can do hypnosis in the way that works best for you. If this is your livelihood, then present what you are presenting and do the business. But know your outcome. My outcomes have changed over the years. I've had to reinvent myself a time or two, from a radio career to a hypnosis career. Boy, this was an eye-opener. When I was a radio personality and I made appearances often, my cachet preceded me. I would show up at a place and there were 500, 1,000 people there to see me. They came to see me, or the group of people I worked with for the show or the radio station. The cachet preceded us. We were already seen as stars. When I became a hypnotist, boy, was it different. My business partner, also a radio gal, we knew about appearances. And so when we first started our business, that was one of the things we arranged. We set up 5 health fairs and we set up other kinds of things that we could go out and appear. Boy, was it eye-opening for us. When we stood at a health fair and the crowd started coming, but when they saw hypnosis up behind us, often people turned away. They said, don't look at them. Don't look them in the eyes. They'll hypnotize you. Wow, that was different. They didn't want to talk to us. They didn't want to come up and interact with us. Only the people who were curious about hypnosis wanted to come up. Others didn't even want anything to do with us. So that was a real blow to the ego. When you get that kind of blow to the ego, you know what it does to your nonverbals? It can really change them. I can talk to you with confidence, or I can talk to you with fear. And it translates, does it not? So when our confidence was shaken a little, we had to reinvent ourselves quickly as hypnotists and not radio personalities. Fortunately, I got a wonderful suggestion from a respected mentor who said, are you kidding me? At a Chamber of Commerce meeting, sitting at a table with the CPAs and the real estate agents and the insurance salesmen, you're still the most interesting person at the table. You are a hypnotist. Oh boy, did that change things for me. As soon as I owned that, I was able to project that. My nonverbals, my stance, my presentation was congruent with where I was. I should have learned that lesson a long time ago, because I've been married 28 years. My husband and I first got together when we were first dating. There was a period of time when he was looking for a new job. Now, in the radio business, I had moved from other states to Chicago. Every radio, this was back in the old days, you didn't post your resume on the internet and get found in those days. You sent out audio tapes, usually on reel-to-reel or cassette, and a cover letter with a resume. And that's how long ago it was. And I would send my very up-tempo, very hard-driven, friendly newscasts or show presentation, along with a very short cover letter that said something like, I'm ready for your city, you're ready for me, I can get the job done for you. And I got most of the jobs I applied for because it was very congruent. Now, my husband, on the other hand, is very laid back, he's calm. we could wrap his car with advertising because he's not a road rager. We wouldn't wrap mine. But at any rate, he's very calm. He's laid back. He's a detail-oriented guy. I'm a big picture kind of person. But because I'd written all these successful cover letters, I said, here, let me write this for you. This will be great. And I wrote his cover letter for him. And he sent it with his resume. He got called in for 3 or 4 jobs and didn't get the jobs. He's a very talented television producer and technical manager, and he wasn't getting these jobs until it clicked, till I figured it out, till I realized that this type A letter that they were getting was not congruent with the laid back guy who came in, the calm manager that came in. So the next time I said, you know what, you write your cover letters. It was wordier, it was longer, it was calmer. He sent that cover letter. The first job he applied for, he got. There was a lot of congruence. So I should have learned that lesson about congruence a long time ago and applied it to everything I do. What is your outcome? Do you want high dollar clients? Do you want lots and lots and lots of clients? It might make a difference. There is a great hypnotist in New York, Grace Smith, who is very interested in high dollar clientele. She does work for $5,000 and up. And so she doesn't present a low dollar website. She patterned her website after Tiffany's, Hermes, high-end enterprises, because that's the clientele that she was attracting. That's the audience that she wanted. The outcome she wanted was high dollar clients. Now, some other people, like the business I was running in the franchise center, that business depended on having the offices filled every hour. We were high dollar, but boy, we were driven to get people in and get the results. Our advertising was testimonial based, so people would come in and see if they could have the same results as others. But we were into getting people in every hour, meeting our price, obviously. So you might want to look at, if you want an hourly business that's really full, you might want to look at a nail salon or a hair salon and model their kind of website advertising. Because when you know what your outcome is, you can back time or back step from that position and really set your first impression. Isn't that what nonverbals is all about? Setting your first impression. A resume is a first impression. It's a foot in the door. Once you get your clients in the door, you better be congruent with the message or you'll lose them. They'll be yours to lose, but you want that first impression to bring the people in, right? So as we brought the people into that franchise business, we had the lovely office, we set the tone, and we had most of the people who come in, we gave free consultations at that point. I don't do that anymore, but we did free consultations at that point. Most people who came in bought a program. But that was a sales event that also overlapped with hypnosis, if that makes sense to you. We had to have the goods in order to come through and get those testimonials that drove our business. Life did change for me. I had a life event occur and I needed to leave that business and work from home. My mother had to move in with me and I became a full-time caregiver for her, but I had a lot of clients under contracts with that business that I was running. And we had divorced the franchise along the way and became Chicago Hypnosis Center instead. All of our advertising and our search engine optimization had been around Chicago Hypnosis Center. When I moved my clients into my home and then wanted new clients in my home, that was a real big difference. As people looked up Chicago Hypnosis Center and called to make an appointment, and I said, well, I have a home office. No congruence. It didn't work. After I lost a couple of clients just on the phone because they were expecting something entirely different than I was offering them, I realized that Chicago Hypnosis Center wasn't going to work for me anymore. I changed my business to Care in Hand Hypnosis Chicago LLC. Now, all of the search engine optimization I'd done on that Chicago Hypnosis Center, I didn't want to throw away, so I pointed that website to my website, but there was a transition page that said, this is now Karen Hand Hypnosis. It softened it. It changed the impression slightly, and someone who made the call from that was now expecting a single practitioner instead of an office center. So now I'm back to congruence. I had Karen Hand Hypnosis Chicago LLC, nonverbal. It's on my advertising. The LLC is a nonverbal to show that it is a real company. It's not a fly-by-night business, and it's not a hobby business. So you can put nonverbals messaging throughout your advertising, throughout what you're doing, throughout your website and all of your promotional material. Know your outcome, and then know your audience. What audience do you want? Do you want the Hermes audience, where they will spend $5,000 on a set of sheets? Or do you want the TJ Maxx audience, high turnover, but a lower price? Know the audience that you want, and then advertise or message to that audience, again with congruence. Jason Linett, brilliant in Facebook advertising. Facebook advertising gets a bad rap sometimes, but Jason decoded the system. He had a sugar busting plan that he was selling, and he targeted it on Facebook just to people who had ever clicked on diabetes or sugar busting or sugar cravings or anything like that. If they'd ever clicked on that, you know the magic of Facebook, right? They would get one of his ads, and it turned over a lot of clients. It brought a lot of clients to him because he strategically marketed to that audience. He knew his outcome. He wanted people who needed help cutting sugar. He targeted right to that audience, and it was a tremendous success for him. So know yourself, know what you're capable of, be true to yourself. There is enough business for all of us. We're really not in competition. There's enough business for all of us. I guarantee you, I'm not getting clients who have a filtering system that says they have to be in a brick and mortar office building for it to be sanctioned for them. I'm not getting those clients, but I am getting the clients who like my presentation, who like a very clean, very straightforward website, who like a blonde. You know, who knows what their filtering system is, but we get the clients that we deserve, and there's enough business for all of us. There is enough business for hypnotists who do straight hypnosis. There's enough business for hypnotists who do past life regression. There is enough business for people who do energy work and other things. We're not in competition. We are presenting ourselves and being congruent with the clients that we need. I believe that we will always get the clients that we need and the clients that we deserve. Be true to yourself. Be clear about your message. Know your outcome and know your audience, and your nonverbals will be much more congruent. Once you've got the message going, here are a couple of tips to enhance your message or to create a little more nuance to what you're doing. Color coding. Have you read the book, The Charisma Myth? If you haven't, boy, is it a great book. Boy, will it show you how hypnosis can do so much more than just hypnotize. You know what I'm talking about. Hypnosis can be used in all sorts of things. And the author of The Charisma Myth is using an awful lot of hypnosis in that book. One of the things she talks about is color coding. We automatically relate to certain colors. Black is a serious color. This is on your handout, by the way. Black is a color of seriousness and determined. Red, passion and energy. Notice that I wanted to give you the message of serious passion today. What am I wearing? If I were talking with a client who really needed some hand holding, I might wear blue. Blue is the color of trust. I might have a Chicago background that has more blue coloring in it. My backgrounds that I use are strategically chosen to set a tone, to set a message. It's a nonverbal. That's something that's taken care of. That's scene setting that I don't have to do. I also have a theater background, so I know a little bit about creating a scene. You are creating ambiance. You are definitely creating ambiance. When there was a time, now I have an office with a separate entrance that clients can come into, but there was a time when my mother had to be in that particular room in my home. And so my office had to be upstairs in a guest bedroom. When you walked into my house, there's a 2-story atrium in the front room. It's a beautiful space, lots of windows. And it's almost a confusion technique because a new client will walk in and kind of look around and I can almost see the wheels turning. We're going to do this out here in front of everybody. It's a big, beautiful space. But as I greet them and we have our pleasantries and I'm ascertaining a certain things by doing the handshake and watching how they're walking, you know, as much as I am watching all of that stuff strategically, looking for answers that I need to facilitate a change, they're doing it too, whether they're doing it consciously and are aware of it or not. They're sizing me up the same way I'm sizing them up, right? And their surroundings. So we do some pleasantries. And as I shake their hand, I say, you know, I'm so glad that you're here. We're going right up to the executive suite, the corner office. That's where we'll do our session. And I point up to it. The door is open. And the messaging, the words, the strategic words I use, executive suite, corner office, those go through filters of, oh, okay, this is serious business and we all want the corner office. When they get up to that room, it doesn't look like a bedroom at all. That room looks like an office. It's got a desk, it's got a computer, it's got a recliner, it's got a freestanding chair. And then I get to learn some more things about my clients as they're observing the space and making their decisions. I can watch a client, I send them in first, and then I follow behind them a few moments after they get into the office because I want them to go in and make some decisions once they go into the room. I want to know if they're going to plop down in the recliner or if they're going to wait for me to tell them what to do, or if they're going to do a combination of the two. If they plop down in the recliner, they're giving me the message that, all right, I'm ready, let's fix this thing. That's a good message to get. But I also want to let them know that in this office, I'm in charge. I want to do some gentle maneuvering. I'll do the gentle maneuvering with a phone call as an example. If we have a schedule a phone call, a time that we're calling, the client has to call me. I don't chase after them. That's gentle education or nonverbal education that they have to initiate the action. They have to take action. So they have to initiate the call. In my office, if they take action and claim a chair, I'm going to take back my control gently by saying, oh, you know, everybody wants that chair first, but I need you to sit over here first and fill out a bit of paperwork for me. Now, the paperwork's on my clipboard. I could hand it to them to fill out, but that's not the point of that particular exercise. The exercise is non-verbally or giving them some clues, cues, that here we do it my way. In a follow-up session, I can tell the difference that is made in their belief. Often somebody who came in and just claimed a chair will come in the second time and say, where would you like me to sit today? So they've made that change to me being in charge. Back to this color coding. Black is serious, determined. Red is passion and energy. White is honesty and innocence. I did a panel presentation once with 4 of us on a panel at a conference, and I was dressed seriously. And one of the men was in a dark blue suit, and another woman on the panel, wild hair, beautiful, blonde, curly, wild hair, was wearing a white top and black pants. And I asked the question, who on the panel is the most innocent? The room was almost unanimous in choosing her as the innocent one. It was the white that she was wearing. White is the color of honesty and innocence. Who's the serious one on the panel? Who is the most trustworthy on the panel? The man in the dark blue suit got the trustworthy award. And isn't it interesting that blue is the color of trust? And interestingly enough, according to the charisma myth, the darker the blue, the deeper the trust. So I'll use a blue background and even a blue jacket if I want to establish trust with an online client or an in-person client. Those are things that I can know and strategically add to my ambiance without using a single word. Gray, by the way, is a neutral color. It indicates business. Orange and yellow I found interesting. Orange and yellow catch the eye quickly and tire the eye quickly. So keep that in mind if you're going to do a presentation, just something you might want to be aware of. In your words, in your talking, you can also have nuance to your words that create non-verbals. Art Lidecker, a hypnotist in Chicago for years and years and years. When he first became a hypnotist, he learned some interesting things. And he has a book now, Promotions on a Shoestring, I believe is the name of it. And in that, he talked about when he first opened his office, he had no clients. He just couldn't get clients. And he worked for a couple of months with no clients and finally decided, I got to take a break. I got to take a vacation. So he scheduled a vacation and he was going to be gone for a full month. And the next call he got, the person asked how soon they could get in to see him. And he said, well, I am completely booked until, and he gave them the first date that he had coming back from vacation. They booked the appointment. And then he got another call, and he got another call, and he made it part of his business practice. I'm not suggesting that you do this, but I'm saying he made it a part of his business practice that nobody gets an appointment immediately. Every appointment is 3 weeks out because it gives the nonverbal message that he's very busy, very successful. He had the goods, and he came through with that. So you can do that kind of nonverbal suggesting in the words that you choose. It was from Art that I learned to never have a cancellation. I don't have cancellations. I have reschedules. If I have a client who I know, I can sense on the phone that they need to do something very quickly, and if I have time in my schedule this week or next week, I will say, you're lucky. I just had a rescheduled appointment, and so I have this time available. Can you make it to this time? And they will snap that up. So cancellations set up an impression, reschedules set up an impression, and you also want to instruct your clients, gently teach your clients along the way. I don't want to teach my clients that it's okay to cancel. It is okay to reschedule, but it's not okay to cancel. So I just don't use that in my vocabulary. You can always reinvent yourself if you need to. When I went from radio to hypnosis, I reinvented myself. I had to. When I went from a big center to a home office, I reinvented myself. I discovered that I love working out of my home, and I love working via Zoom. So my whole business is transitioned to a home and Zoom business. I present myself that way. You've got to know yourself. You've got to know the outcome that you want, and you've got to know your audience so that you can market to them. If you really need to learn about creating an experience, do a deep trance identification with Walt Disney. He created an experience, didn't he? When you go to Disney World or Disneyland, you go up to a center in traffic and the whirling of life, and then you walk through, go in a monorail into the happiest place in the world. Anticipation, expectation, impressions, non-verbal cues. Use them, learn about them, mind your words, use your words strategically, but make sure you've got the non-verbals congruent with your business so that you will have a successful business. You know, it reminds me of the story of a man who went searching for the meaning of life. He searched high and low for the greatest guru in the whole world to discover the meaning of life. And when he found the guru, it was way on top of a mountainside. He had to walk for a day and a half to get up to the mountainside to see the guru. And when he arrived, there she sat in her hut on a little mat. And he walked in and he sat in front of her. And she sat there on her mat and she smiled and nodded at him. And smiled and nodded. And smiled and nodded. And the whole day passed. And at the end of the day, as sun set, she stood up, folded up her mat, and walked out of the hut. And the guy said, hey, wait a minute. I climbed up this whole mountainside to find the meaning of life, and you're just going to walk away from me? And she turned to him and said, but you already know the meaning of life. You found it. when you came here. And he said, what do you mean? And she said, well, spell guru for me. And he said, well, G-U-R-U. And she said, that's right. G, you are you. Know yourself and present yourself. Now go be the best you that you can be with your words, with your nonverbals. Be congruent. I wish you much success. I'm Karen Hand. Thanks for spending the time with me.